You're watching Public Eye, brought to you by the New Vision Movement. And now, here's your host, Dr. Frank McField.
Good evening and welcome to Public Eye. This evening I'm very fortunate. I have three very intelligent young persons with me. I have Ori Marion, I have Kimberly Wilkin, and I have Rhonda Livingston, in that order. And this evening we want to be discussing, a few issues, hopefully that will be of interest to young people as well. Ori, I'll start with you.
Yes, sir.
I'll ask you, I know that you're a member of the Youth Parliament, and how did you get involved with the Youth Parliament, and what is it exactly that you all are doing in the Youth Parliament?
Well, sir, we're going to be discussing the reform of it, and all do we think that it needs to come to reform, and also...
That's the Constitution?
Constitution, yes, sir, I'm sorry. And also we're going to be talking about teenage pregnancies in it. I was quite interested in it because it's just a natural interest for me to do with our government and everything and how it runs, and it's a great experience for a youth, to get involved in that type of thing.
But you said already that you're going to be running in 17 years.
Yes, sir, 16. I'd like to run in 16 years.
And how old are you now?
I'm 17, sir.
17. So you already know that you want to be involved in politics?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, so one of the issues you say is whether or not there's a need for a constitutional review.
Yes, sir.
So you have any opinions about that? Kimberly, you also on that Youth Parliament, right?
Yes, sir.
And you have any ideas about that? With regards to the Constitution?
Yes, well, with regards to the Constitution, they were talking about auditing and checking out if, for example, dirty money coming into the Cayman Islands with banks and stuff. And I do think more from a moral standpoint that should be checked into, and that the auditors should check within the banks, and they should have their companies open to it, so that no fraudulent things go on within our economy. No banks, will close or anything.
So in other words, we have a moral obligation to be responsible and to know who we're doing business with.
I do feel that way, sir.
So that's, well, are you saying that will be one of the issues?
That's one of the issues, yes, sir.
That you're discussing as well?
Yes, sir.
What about the teen pregnancy issue?
I wasn't really thinking about the Constitution being revised and changed because I'm not that familiar with it. But the teenage pregnancy is something that a lot of people are thinking about right now. We just did a program, an Excel program with some people from the States, and then like right now is something that a lot of people will think about because we're getting into that age. So, and it's a big thing nowadays with a lot of girls getting pregnant, and the guys aren't really helping. So it's something that I guess we have to think about, and it's something that a lot of people are thinking about right now.
Well, Wanda, you're not a member of the Youth Parliament. As a matter of fact, you graduated from high school and you're working now. So what do you feel, for instance, like about the youth, the teen pregnancy? You're still a teen, are you?
21 now, so somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be looked into.
Well, but when you were in school, that was something.
That was also a big issue. There were several people that got pregnant during high school, but I think back then, what was the case was after the girl had the child, she was able to return to school and finish schooling. But no, I don't think that's the case. I think they have a special school for that now.
Yeah. So at the moment, once the teen is pregnant, they have to leave school, and once they have the child, they can't return to school.
Well, the thing is, I believe what it is that they're not allowed to return. For instance, if you're in John Green and you get pregnant, you're not allowed to return to that school. I think they have a special school. I think it's behind the library or something like that you have to go.
No, the one behind the library is actually the Alternative Education Center.
I think Fontner's Academy
in
Westway also accommodates.
There is one called the Young Parent
Young Parent Program.
That's, you know where the Bob Soto
Dive Club.
Dive is the Lobster Parties. It's
Yeah.
directly
Across the
across
street.
there.
Oh.
There's
okay,
a place.
alright.
That's where I think it is. Yeah, but Kimberly, I'm also interested. You're how old?
13,
And what grade are you in?
9,
And so how much more time do you have in school?
3 years.
3 years. So you'll graduate when you're
16.
16? And that's where you were saying that you'll be a little young and
Yeah, they might depend. Well, right now, I will be doing year 12 over again if they don't. If I'm not sure how it's gonna work yet, but they're saying that when I get to year 12, they might make me do it over again.
might be too young to go to school.
Too young
college?
too young to go to college. So they'll just make me repeat it over again. So I'm in a age group of like more my time,
Mhm.
more my age. Which is
So Ori, you're at what point in school now?
I'm a senior this year, sir, and I'll be graduating in June.
Mhm. So you intend to study what?
Yes, sir. Well, actually, I was thinking of doing 4 years down here for business management and finishing up a master's degree at Eckerd in the States. But
Mhm.
now I kind of decided I want to stay down here for personal reasons. Actually, my father is going to start me up with a company.
Mhm.
It's going into effect soon and should be up and running by December maximum. So that's kind of helping me decide I'd like to stay here, and also I can get involved with my community and
Mhm.
do more things and stuff. So rather than just try to take it easy in college, I'd like to go full force. And
So you're talking about getting more involved in your community.
Yes.
At the moment, I mean, there seems to be quite a bit of concern about youth and youth violence and gangs.
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, do you all know anything? Have any experience with this? What do you think about it? Or I mean, it's obviously not
Mhm.
the way you're running, right?
No, sir. But actually, I know quite a few of people who say are in gangs and everything, and some of them you would not expect it out of them at first, but then they get into it more and more, and there's more violence that takes place, and it's sad to see
Mhm.
that the islands coming to the point where violence is actually coming into youth, killing each other, and things of that nature.
And why do you
No.
think this is so?
There's a matter of many reasons. Some could be from drugs, alcohol, lack of parental guidance with them,
Support, yeah.
many things, peer pressure, and then you just get wrapped up in everything. What I feel,
So you come to this conclusion about this. How do you reach that conclusion? By studying in school, or by hearing people talk about it,
no,
Just
sir,
see
by
or by
actually
observation?
observation
Just
and personally
observation.
knowing people who have been killed and who have been involved in things, stabbings, just even violence, fights and stuff, sir. It just leads from there, just personal experiences with relationships with people.
What do you think would have been your lot if you didn't have the relationship that you have with your parents?
My parents,
You think you would probably have ended up?
well, to be honest, I think I'd be quite rowdy, you know, because my parents, the way I was raised is you're raised in church, and then I took on spiritually, you know, I'm a Christian, and just the relationship that you get with your parents, and then through the way that I was raised, it just, what's on the inside of you will show on the outside of you. Therefore, in your actions, you'll be a lot different rather than thinking more violent. You think a hole in your tongue, responding differently to people, and just because the little smallest things can lead to bigger and bigger and bigger things.
So you learn how to manage
Yes, sir.
your reactions
Yes,
to
sir.
people and situations. Rhonda, when did you graduate now?
1996.
96. And at the time, 96, were you aware of any problems with violence or youth groups or gangs in the schools at that time?
Not to that extent. There would be occasional fights and stuff like that, but it wasn't that serious where it would prolong and continue for, and eventually cause deaths and stuff like that. But there was violence, but I don't think it was to this extent.
But Kimberly, I mean, you seem to be a pretty bouncy young 13-year-old. I mean, you must have some pretty good ideas about what's happening out there.
Well,
I
there
mean-
are a lot of, I mean, what it is just everybody's jumping into groups. That's what it is, you know, everybody has a group. If you don't belong in a group, then you're in trouble. Trying to think how this goes. Everybody has a group of friends, and most people are only in one group. You're not in two groups at a time. I mean, most people have a bunch of friends all over the place, and they can just jump from group to group, seeing their friends. But it's not working like that anymore. It's like territorial. They're all territories now in school.
So you can't cross. You can't move from one group to the
Well,
next.
no, I mean, right now, I normally I'm up in the music room, you know, that's where I hang out now. But if I were to go into certain places, I'd be in trouble. You know, I'd get maybe not beat up, but I'd be cursed at. I know that, and I would be. Sometimes I might be chased out of the territory, the boundary that I was in, or whatever.
By
Do
girls or?
Oh, both sexes.
Yeah.
Both sexes, yeah.
So you were saying that also with the expressing opinions in schools seem to be something that you got to be careful about as well.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has an opinion, but it's the question of whose opinion is the right one in the school. I mean, if you have the wrong opinion in other people's ideas, if you have the wrong opinion, you can be in trouble. You know, in class, if you express an opinion that you feel, you know, is true, some kids will just go, "Oh, that's a lie," and they will, you know, express their opinion against yours.
In the classroom or outside the classroom?
In and out, you know.
Okay.
I mean, it's less verbal, I guess. In the classroom, it's not as violent. When you get out of the classroom, it's a different thing.
So there seems to be a certain amount of peer pressure, or what I would consider to be coercion, for you to express the so-called dominant opinion in the yard, the schoolyard.
Yeah, I mean, most people agree with the other person, you know. So it's basically
So
one idea.
whose opinion is looked up to? The intelligent person's opinion, or the physically rowdy person's opinion?
Physically rowdy people.
So in other words, that the physically rowdy person are the people who are creating the norms for behavior. They're creating the behavioral standards in the school environment.
Right, that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you continue to deal with that, seeing it, and still be able to pursue your goals?
In my opinion, what they have to do can ruin their lives, but it's not coming in their mind. I've got my own thing. I've started, you know, I work in my stepfather's store, and you know, from that I'm getting good experience in business matters.
Okay.
You
So
know,
can you tell us who your stepfather is?
Russell Tatum.
Tatum, yeah.
Yeah, he works at Kibble and Wireless somehow.
Okay. And what kind of store do you have?
A television store,
Television?
Audio Concepts. I've worked there since the summer, and I've learned a lot, like in business. I've been computers and fixing the stuff and selling it and all that. I've had a good experience in it. And then at school, I've started music for the past 5 months, and I've just gotten really, really deep into it, and I'm enjoying it. And right now, I have friends, but they're like saying, you know, you're not spending any time with us, you know, what's wrong with you, you know? And I'm just like, your problem, not mine. It's not a
So
big
you do
deal.
find things to do.
Yeah, I mean, some people say they're bored, but I have so many things to do. I'm never bored.
And Ori, what about you?
Well, me, sir, I'm quite busy at the moment. I'm involved in Key Club, which is part of Rotary. Connected with that in helping the community, you know, doing charity service, whether it be sometimes we go to the Pines. I actually haven't gone on those visits, but cleaning up the community and things like that. It's not quite known here. Physically, I like to aggressive inline skate, which is, I don't know if you ever heard of ESPN Extreme Games. It's like on rollerblades, like where you get the ramps, you do flips and all kind of stuff. I'm involved in a lot of that, keep myself on my feet, socializing with everyone, and also helping my father at work with him, and at the moment trying to start a company up. Yes, sir.
So one of the things that I understand, Kimberly, You were born in the Cayman Islands, right?
Right.
When were you? What year was that?
87.
1987.
Right.
Right. But your parents are not Caymanians or
No.
holders of Caymanian status.
No, they're not. I'm right this very minute. I'm on my mother's work permit.
Okay.
So yeah.
So you're on her work permit, but you go to a public school.
Right. Yeah.
You go to a government school.
Right.
Yeah. And so you've lived here all your life.
Yeah. Right.
So if you live here all your life, what are you then? I mean, is that a question that you ask yourself?
No, not really, because to be honest, I don't think about it. I mean, if someone asks me where I'm from, I say Cayman. But if they ask me what my nationality is, I tell them I'm British. But my parents see that I'm Caymanian because I'm born here and I was raised by a Caymanian parent, because my stepfather's Caymanian. So in my mother's opinion, I should be Caymanian because I was born here, raised here, and went to school here.
So your mother is not encouraging you to be anything else but a Caymanian? I mean, there's nobody encouraging you to be British,
No.
although that's your nationality.
Right.
From a cultural perspective, in other words, there's nobody encouraging you to be that.
No.
So if you went to England, do you think that you would be able to fit in with all the kids in London, or?
Probably not, because I've picked up things like from Cayman that are just, I guess, something that Caymanians do. You know, I mean, I don't know what they are, but well, I mean, when I went to England last time I went to England, I didn't fit in very well because it was just the kids there did different things. Than
Well,
what
I hope
do.
that I don't insult anybody by saying this, but I think that you're open, which I think is Caymanian, and less English, because English people tend to be a little
Keep
bit
to
more
themselves.
withdrawn, and everything you say is very much to the point and out there, and I think that's very Caymanian, because Caymanians live in an environment where there is less fear, and because there's less fear, people have more confidence
More openness.
and
Yeah.
more
And
openness.
sweetness,
Yeah,
so.
so that is reflected in your particular attitude. Yeah, and Wanda, to you now, you were born in Cayman.
Right.
What year were you born?
1979.
You were born in 1979, and I understand that you have a sister that was born the year before you, or 2
No,
years?
she was born in 1973, 6 years prior to my birth.
6 years prior to your
Right.
birth, and she has Caymanian status, right?
Right, she's Caymanian status.
Okay, well, okay, because your father and your mother migrated here what year?
1970, I believe.
19,
It was
19 what?
1970. I believe it's-
1970.
Right,
Okay, they've been here since, well, that's over 31 years.
30
right,
And they're permanent residents.
right. They have permanent residence
Okay.
with the right to work.
So you're a British dependent territory citizen,
That's correct.
because by virtue of your connection to the Cayman Islands, you were born here. So when you turn 30, 10, according to the British Nationality Act 1981, you were entitled to be registered as a British dependent territory citizen.
Right,
So you have a Cayman Islands passport, British
Passport.
Cayman Islands passport, British dependent territory citizen passport. But although you have that, you were not able to qualify, for instance, to get a scholarship to go on to college or anything like that. You would have.
no, because I wouldn't be considered
Yeah.
Caymanian.
So you were, in other words, if you were going to get a further education, you would have to see about that yourself, or your
Exactly.
parents would have to have
finance that
finance,
themselves, yeah.
things like that. So at the moment, what do you do?
At the moment, I work at Bank of Bermuda as a shareholder service administrator. Basically, that's we administrate mutual funds there. And I've recently started there in December of this year. And prior to that, I worked at Fairheads International for 2 years. And basically, I did the same thing there.
And you work on a work permit or work?
Well, with permanent residence with the right to work, that gives me the right to freely work anywhere.
Okay. I also understand that you had permanent residency before you were 18 years old as a result of the fact that your parents had that. Can you describe that situation, how that developed for me?
Right, that happened. My parents applied for permanent residency in 1981, and when they were granted residency, they were also authorized to render the passports of any children they had under the ages of 18, and hence that's where I got my residency from. But being that I got it from my parents, I lost it at the age of 18, and I had to reapply for my own residency at that time.
So you have permanent residency now with the right to work.
Right.
So is that a satisfying status or for you? Are you satisfied with that, or are there any reasons why you might want to have Caymanian status or whatsoever?
Well, I'm not satisfied with that because that's just residency. That's not a citizenship. That's not a that doesn't confirm a nationality. That's just residency with the right to work. And my understanding is that a resident would be someone from another country, but they just wish to remain here and work here. So hence they would be given residency.
Okay, so you're saying that to you a resident is a person from another country
Right,
who has decided to reside here,
right,
but you see yourself as being from this country
Right.
rather than from another country, because what other country would you be from if you were born and raised here, basically?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, what I remember once your father told me that when you had to go to community college or something like that, you found yourself in a situation where you were told that you had to go to the other side of the line, more or less. You know, you had to pay because you were not a Caymanian, and that seemed to.
It wasn't actual community college. It was when I started public schools, because at first I used to go to prep school, which was a private school. So basically, when I started government schools, I was inclined to pay the fees of an international student, and that's when the whole issue came up that I wasn't Caymanian.
So before that, you didn't have any idea about.
No, basically because by me being issued a Cayman passport and birth certificate, no one advised us at that point that, look, this child is not Caymanian, she needs status or she needs residency.
But in the growing up of a child, in the maturity of a child, what point do you all get to say, I am not this or I am that? I mean, how does that happen? I mean, you were born someplace else, weren't you? Or
Yes, sir.
You were born where?
I was born in Tacoma Park, Maryland, in the United States. I have dual citizenship for the U.S. and Cayman Islands. My father was also born in Tampa, but he has status from his father who was born here. And my mother is from here, and so are her parents and her grandparents.
So, you don't necessarily believe that in having dual nationality that somehow that makes anybody disloyal to any place?
No, sir. I feel more Caymanian than I am American, but also I feel that I'm both. But if you ask me which do I really feel, I feel like I'm more of a Caymanian because this is all I know, you know. I have family to the States. I visit very frequently to the United States, but I do feel I'm more Caymanian than American.
And how do you define that when you say you're more Caymanian? What do you mean by that?
The same as what they said, you know, except for being born here. I was raised here. This is all unknown. This is all my friends here.
This is your world.
Yes, sir. Everything I relate
This is
to
your
is
world.
in Cayman Islands. Just, you know, my whole environment that I've been brought up in.
You know, I like to tell you this story. I mean, when I was 15 and a half years old, we went on the plane to Miami first and then to New Jersey.
Yes.
And I lived abroad in the United States. And the point is that I did miss the Cayman Islands a lot. And it was like being dead. So when you're separated from something that's all you know, it's like being dead, and it's a terrible feeling. And sometimes, you know, when people say that they're homesick, you know, it's such a horrible feeling. There are a lot of Caymanians that get homesick or got homesick when they went away, and that must be the same thing that a person who's born here, who is raised up here, who's not allowed to stay here, who has to go away from here, that's like being dead. You know, that's like being put in exile. That's how I feel about it when you really think deeply about it. Because a lot of times when people are talking about nationality and belongers status, they don't think about how people feel.
Well, actually, sir, I have some views on that. I do believe if a person is born, raised here, and living here for at least 10 to 12 years, they should be given permanent residency with the right to work, and even more, the right to have a business without a Cayman partner. I also do believe that they should be, in a certain way, considered a citizen of the island, but also you have to remember our island is unique, and with the small population that we have, and I think more status holders, as in the people who can vote and be elected to the LA, I feel that because of the traditional background that we have, I feel that it's more those who should have the right to vote. You know, you keep hang on to something, but I also do understand and feel the same way. If I grew up here and I could not get the citizenship for the country, I would also want it. But I think that I'm not going against what you're saying. I'm thinking that there does need to come a compromise in those, because you can also have those who are Cayman citizens who may speak English or American or whatever it may be with a different accent. You know, they relate to the U.S. Differently. If their needs and satisfaction isn't here within Cayman, they might choose to just leave it all. And then you have another person here who's born, raised, and relates to Cayman in another way, and would just give to have the citizenship.
Could you see yourself marrying somebody from another country besides Cayman?
Actually, sir, yes, I could, to be honest.
Well, the question that if you could see yourself
sir.
marrying somebody else, and a marriage is like a permanent kind of relationship.
Yes, sir.
It is a very intimate relationship, which is not demanded to be had with somebody.
There's
who
a stipulation in that.
Right.
I would not marry. I would marry lady from foreign, but only if she would be willing to stay in the Cayman Islands.
Okay, well.
Because I'm not going to live anywhere else.
Okay,
for
well,
my whole life.
that's what I mean.
Say that,
But what I
yes,
mean
sir.
is, if you can live with a woman, you would basically want it from some places. You want to give her the same rights in the house that you have in your
Yes,
house.
sir.
So if she should have the same rights in your house as you have in your house, shouldn't she have the same rights in your country that you have in your country?
That's actually a hard question.
Yeah.
You know, I can't say that you can also give a direct answer to these. They're quite complex.
Because I'm saying that really, and I realize it's complex, and I don't.
Yes, sir.
I'm not trying to be facetious or
Yes,
anything like
yes, I
that. But I'm
understand,
just demonstrating a point, because
Yes.
if she can have the rights of a citizen
Mm-hmm.
in your country, you're already started to integrate your country.
Yes, sir.
So if a foreign woman married to Caymanian or a foreign man married to Caymanian can exercise rights in the Cayman Islands, that would be exercised in such a way that we trust that they will exercise the rights for the benefit of the whole community,
sir.
then there's a possibility that a person born in the Cayman Islands,
Should do the
raised
same,
in the Cayman
yes,
Islands,
sir.
would not necessarily misuse that political
Mhm.
right. Because you're saying that they could be given a right to operate a business, which as far as a lot of people are concerned is a very important right too. But at the same time, we seem to be a little bit more defensive when it comes to the
Yes.
politics.
Yes, sir. In which I do feel really strongly that there needs to be a compromise, and that, as I said from before. But what I think is a lot of people are afraid of, and also I think that maybe even me a little, we're kind of scared that there could be a population overflow, and that we might the resources that we have within the Cayman Islands will not be able to
Yeah.
fit that of so many people coming in and just being born here. But what I do think is even though I would say if her kids have been born here and raised the same as she has, I do believe that there has to come something maybe that along the generation, you know, she's establishing tradition in the island and roots within it. And I do believe that maybe even if through her whole entire lifetime she does not receive status, that her kids or grandkids should be able to receive status because of the background that they have in it. You understand?
But if she achieves that background by the mere fact that she's born here
Yes, sir.
and raised here, she's almost the same as if that generation has already become socialized, we say, as a Caymanian.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's basically what we have here. I mean, you know, Kimberly, I mean, it's kind of hard for you to probably say this, but what would you do with having status, for instance? I mean, what would you want to do with it?
Well, if I had status, it would be easier for me to go to colleges, get a further education. It would be easier for me to apply for a job without having permit trouble and that kind of stuff.
So you would feel safe in terms of having mobility, in terms
Right,
of seeking jobs and promote and be able to exercise. So
and if I was able to have a permit,
But the-
a status, right?
you see, a lot of us make this idea that people are going to be interested in politics. And most countries in the world, some 50% of the people vote. That's supposed to be a lot. So most people are not interested in politics. They're interested in economics. And if they can master economics, they don't have to really be interested in politics. So if you can give a person a right to own a business,
Yes, sir.
then where they can improve themselves, why would they even be interested in the political arena? And a lot of persons that have status, that are Caymanians, are not even registered to vote, that won't vote. So this whole obsession that we have that somehow that if people have status, it will cause them to get involved in politics rather than perhaps in economics or something else, I think is putting a little bit too much emphasis on the importance of the political institution to people. Because although politics is an honorable profession as far as I'm concerned, things don't get done because of government. Things get done because of people and because of people's cooperation with one another in the workplace in particular. So how our industries run is of primary importance. But the interesting thing is that 60% also of the people in our workforce are from someplace else. So it would seem that we have, from the point of view of our labor force, we have a tremendous deficit.
Yeah.
And if an economy has to grow in order to keep going, it means that we are going to have to go forward, right? So that means that we are even going to create more of a deficit. So my point was
Unless you can get more Caymanians to step up, but I do see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, we do have 60%,
Numbers.
and it's going to grow and grow and grow.
So if
Yeah, I
you
think
got
so.
a few Caymanians, these are homegrown. They're not produced the genetic way.
Yes, sir.
They're not genetic Caymanians in that sense, but they're certainly sociologically Caymanians. In other words, they've been socialized here with you. So that there is a possibility that if there's a covenant that could be made between anybody, it could be made between the three of you. I mean,
Yeah.
that seems to me, you know, more of a possibility for you all to found a new Cayman, because you're going to need the people to work along with you in order to multiply your productivity.
Yes, sir. That also goes along as what I said before. I do believe when it comes to business, you know, they should have the right to own a business without a Caymanian partner, so they can help the island grow and everything. And also, when you want to talk about the right to vote and run for MLA, I'd have to say I actually kind of feel a little strong about that. That you know, you're not too sure, whatever, but to give them the full status.
Yeah.
But I also do believe that it would be good in some cases, you know, more than others. That like certainly these young ladies, they seem very capable of doing it, and it's just that you can't do it with every single person because they might not be the same way, and you just, if you give it to everyone.
Well, yeah. Well,
in
you
general.
have to. Yeah, right.
But
you have to.
maybe if they did come a little looser than they do now about granting residency. I mean, sorry, granting status to certain people who show interest and long term want to invest as in themselves and living in the island.
You know, I would say, well, Kimberly, would you want to run for office, you think?
Well, if I had a chance to run for the office, I probably would take it because there are a lot of things around the island that just need to be cleaned up that I think I have opinions on. I would like to express them out, to Cayman and just tell them, what I think, and that's something that I like doing and I enjoy doing, and I think I do well. So
you would be involved in that, not because you
yeah.
would want to bring any kind of bad things. You wouldn't want to come and take away anybody's rights. You would want to try to help to improve things.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm in the public a lot, and I hear things that people have problems because of things that have the government have the laws that they have that have caused problems for the people. And as we said in the very, very beginning, where the Constitution law needed to be revised, that might be something that we might have to look into if I got a chance to be there.
And I would like to find out something though. What do you all have more in common with one another than you have with some rowdy person who is not constructive,
Yeah.
who is
Yes.
a real
Yeah.
Caymanian?
Yeah.
Who would you want to coexist with? Who do you think will help you survive most?
Well,
So,
those are these
so,
people.
so somehow, if we have the opportunity to choose, we should choose based upon the quality of persons as well, and that is.
I do agree with that, the quality of the person. That's why I was saying that maybe not to every person, but if they're examined properly and the interest, maybe the cash flow that comes into them, and let's say the long-term investment for the person maybe being granted status could be taken up less lightly than it is right now, because it's very hard to be granted status rather than being
Yeah,
born
it's
into it.
very difficult to be granted status. But I mean, one of the reasons why I wanted to show people that were born here and that were raised here is to show the similarity between them and Caymanians today. Because young Caymanians today are not like Caymanians used to be before. And when we look at people, sometimes we say, oh, well, they're not like us. But it's the old people like myself that are saying that, I mean, the younger people are cool and out there and hip, and they're different. They look different, they talk different, they dress different. And it's kind of hard for us to go in there and say, oh, that one wasn't, that one parent wasn't Caymanian, It's kind of hard to tell because everybody is trying to be alike. And if they succeed in being alike, then I don't believe that the law should then set in to separate them. What is together, let it stay together for the benefit of the nation, rather than having to separate. Now, one of the things that I was interested in also, Ori, that we were talking about, is that if Wanda decides to have a child tomorrow, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think it would probably take at least, I'm sorry, it'll take at least 9 months. Sorry, Wanda. But tomorrow, thank you.
Yes, sir.
But anyway, if that happens, that child would not have any citizenship, basically.
Yes, sir.
Because the child is now 2 times removed from the birthplace of the grandparents.
But
So
I do feel strongly about it because in her situation, you see, I do feel that she should be granted status. But then again, if you look at the long run and everyone as a whole, there's a lot of people unlike her that are not involved, and they would not be what you would call Caymanian citizens, and then granting them status just because they've been born here and raised here. And as I said earlier, it just goes back to the uniqueness that we have in our background. But I would say with the established background, as maybe her grandchildren could get Cayman status. But I definitely feel that that not only should she have permanent residency with the right to work, but also to own a business without a Caymanian partner, because as you can see, these are 2 very bright young ladies who could make a difference in the community in that way.
But you're very
economy.
fortunate and
Yes,
that you
sir.
have two nationalities,
Yes, sir.
and yet you
Yeah.
feel that that doesn't create any kind of difficulties for you to handle. Why should it create any difficulties for Kimberly to handle? I mean, if you're better off, if we're better off as human beings, then we want to see other people better
No,
off,
that-
because that is how humanity
Yes, sir.
progressed, not
I-
by me
No, I
progressing,
agree
but
with
by,
you.
yeah.
I agree with you on that. That's why I was saying, well, if you have permanent residency, you can. I know you would say that that they're not technically a Caymanian status holder, so they might not feel as Caymanian. But if they have the right to live here, they don't have to worry about getting a work permit and living here and stuff, and they can work here and can have their own business here. Just maybe not the right to vote and everything. They can feel more at home and feel at ease about it.
But it is the right to
feel-
vote that you seem to be concerned about.
Yes, sir. I just feel that I don't mean to offend anyone in any way, but I just feel that the more people that have their established roots within the Cayman Islands would have more of a say in what goes on within their government, as in the legislature.
But when we talk about democracy, Ori,
sir.
democracy means that each man and woman has a right. It doesn't
Yes,
say
sir.
each citizen,
Yeah.
because that's the problem. If democracy is only for a class of people, we come up against things like we had in South Africa, where there's a division, where we can very conveniently, segregate people into different classes and
But
categories
then
of
again,
citizens.
also when I say that, then that also goes like to say that that I was saying that she wouldn't have the right to vote, and in some cases I do believe that it would be excellent to these young ladies. It'd be excellent to give them Cayman status, but then, as I said from before, just giving it to every single person who's been born and raised here and everything. I don't know, there'd have to be a compromise, maybe a dividing line
Okay.
to see who does. But yes, honestly, when you look at that, you do understand that they would be excellent to get Caymanian status and help their country, and I do think they would make a difference.
Well, I mean,
And
that's
it's just the certain people,
but- Yeah, well, I agree that with you. I mean, I feel definitely that you helped me when you say and you see the point that a compromise might be necessary, because maybe at the end of the day you might not want to just say everybody. You would want
Yes,
to
sir.
still have a possibility
Those
to.
who show a deep interest in the whole living here and everything, just want to be a Caymanian citizen, and those who don't care about it as much or maybe not be involved as much, you look at more harshly and say, should I provide this to them or whatever. But I do have a lot of other friends who are born here and raised here, and they would like to have the status. And then I also look at a lot of other my friends who are born and raised here and wouldn't care if they had it or not, or make a difference and everything. So that's why I just said that I do agree with a lot of people, and then when you look at some others, you might say, well, I don't know if I agree with this. That's why a compromise in the middle would be great, to give people status and more to look towards the line of granting it.
Do you think that the children deserve it more than the parents? For instance, let me explain that,
Yes,
how I
sir.
mean. Parents come here, and for instance, our parents have been here 31 years. They work for
Yes,
this
sir.
country 31 years. They work to help to build it.
Her parents, you said, sir?
Yeah, our parents have
Yes,
been here for
sir.
31 years. Okay, so the question is, my point is it would be better for her to get status than for the parents to get status.
Right.
So if I had to make a choice about who gets status, I'd give her status rather than the parents' status, because you know why? Because she getting status she is at the point now where she is going to be active
Yes, sir.
Right.
in building. You don't want to do anything to restrict her from being as creative and productive in this society as possible. That's the first thing. Second thing is what happens when she starts to produce children. And she might not necessarily produce children with a Caymanian. And even if she produced children with a Caymanian status holder, she might not be married. And so the children end up not having any status. So we create another problem in terms of having to make a moral decisions about those persons as well. Whereas with her parents, as they go along, they are retreating more and more from active life in society
Yeah.
because their productive days are beginning to draw to a close. So permanent residency is a good status for them because they don't need to be active. So permanent residency, even when it was created first, was created for people who were not going to be active at all in our community. It was for rich people or older rich people. And so I think for the persons that have been here for 30 years, that permanent residency would be okay. But for the kids that they have produced here while they have worked here
Well,
for that 30
actually,
years.
I agree with you, sir. They would be less active and stuff. But after 25 years of being a permanent resident here, is it that you can apply for status? They can make a decision. If you get status?
Yeah, but they could after.
I would-
There's a
I
moratorium
would
on the
think-
grant of
I would-
Cayman status
yes,
at the
sir.
moment. You see, so based upon residency, there's a
Okay.
moratorium. So even though somebody has been here for 30 years, they can technically apply, but because there's a moratorium, they wouldn't be granted status. Now, what Caymanians look at and says, well, look, we got all these people that might qualify according to these
Yes,
people
sir.
for status, and so if you give it all to all of them, then we're going to have too much. I'm saying she is already integrated
And yeah,
and
I agree.
assimilated. So it's less disruptive to the society to give it to someone like her. And also, if the parents had to make a choice between her getting status and they getting status, they say let her go and get status, just like let her go and get an education, let
Yeah.
her go and have a future. That's the desire, the dream the parent came here obviously with, and that's one of the reasons why the parent would remain, is because they would like to see their children at the end of the day become a part of the society
Yes,
that they've
sir.
come to,
It-
and that's reasonable. The American society provides a possibility for that, and the excuse that a lot of people have is that America is a big country and Cayman is a small country, but
Or
that
you can also get overpopulated, but
Yeah.
what with citizens. But yes, I do agree with you that when you look at cases like in her case, for example, that she should be granted status. But also, I don't know how the big picture would be if everything would be all a mess and everything. You see, that's why I was thinking maybe a compromise, rather than just doing it as she's doing it right now. But I'll compromise, maybe if granting a few people it and see how it works out. If you do it with those who live here and show interest, as I said, maybe it could be sort of a test to show, okay, this works. So maybe maybe in the future we can be a little bit more lenient with who we grant it to, rather than everybody as a whole.
So, Kimberly, give us a little feedback on our conversation
Okay,
here.
well, I think that Ori said earlier in this conversation that there should be like a line between who should get status and who shouldn't. I agree with that. I think that they should look at the people that they're giving status to and say, all right, what's this person going to do for Cayman? You know, like, I mean, how productive can he or she be to the community or to the business side of Cayman? And they should think, because I know in the newspapers they put little advertisement things that say, you know, I'm applying for status. People who say I shouldn't do it, you know, state their reasons, right? Well, maybe they need to look at that and say, okay, this, like, for instance, Ori, you have status yet?
Yes, I do.
You, all right, well,
since I was born.
right, okay, well, if he had status, if he didn't have status and he was applying for it, they could look at him and say, okay, he's productive, he knows what he wants to do, I think he would be a good candidate to get status, you know?
You know, another thing is that we invited quite a few young people to come to this program.
Yes.
And one person, father, even ran in the last election. And he said he would call me back, and he didn't. And others called and said that they didn't want to appear in the program for whatever reason it was. Now, if we have people who have status, and we were talking about people who have status, at least two of them that decided at the last minute that they wouldn't come. And they're afraid to express their opinions,
Maybe.
right? in a public forum with regards to certain things, what's the point of having the political rights reserved
If you're not going to use them.
if you're not going to
Yeah.
use them?
Don't listen.
If people are training their children to reserve their rights to speak and to say what they want or how things should be, I mean, what's the point of having the right and not exercising it?
Well, that's the thing.
And this is partly part of the problem in the Cayman Islands, is that people will complain, and I'll tell you that honestly, they'll complain. But when it comes to sitting
Yeah.
down and saying, this is what I believe and this is what I want, and I'm sure about
They
that.
don't have anything to say.
They don't have
Yeah,
anything
you know,
to say.
Yes, sir.
That's just the way they are.
That-
So somehow that needs to be fixed. If a right is going to be reserved for you, then you need to take advantage, because obviously you're pointing out that it's a very valuable right, and it's important. So, you know, I was very surprised, and I'd like to know if you could tell me what is it that how do people teach children to be afraid or of saying what it is that they think is correct?
I don't know. I'm kind of partially going against, like, I guess what a few of you were saying. I don't know. I've been taught I express my own opinion. I don't mean to hurt anybody when I express it in no way, shape, or form. But I just express my own opinion and leave it at that. But I do partially agree and disagree with you in not giving it to everyone, but maybe granting it to those. Maybe an inspection could take place in a certain amount.
See, but where we are right now in the conversation is that I'm asking you if you can
Express
tell me
how
is it that you have an opinion and you're willing to express it,
Yes, sir.
and you got kids out there who are, first thing they say, well, my parents are civil servants, or I can't say this, or I can't say that. How is it that people learn this so early? This fear of expressing an opinion.
It's
I
a
don't
lack
know.
of support.
Is what?
Sometimes
From
it's maybe a
parents?
lack of support, because sometimes if you express an opinion and your parents don't agree with you, they're like, shut up. And
Yeah.
that's how a lot of parents are sometimes.
Or basically
way
could
that,
be what they have learned from their parents. Probably they've
Right.
seen their parents withdraw themselves from society. Like they've noticed that their parents are afraid to stand up and speak.
So they're
what
going to
they
pretend to
think.
do that
So-
as well.
What
so
you
they
learn from your
obviously
parents.
just follow what they see their parents do.
Right.
So what you're saying is what they learned from their parents?
Yes, they learn what they observe their parents doing. You know, it also goes to seeing, like, the bad things that their parents may do. They might pick that up and use it when their parents, and also good traits they might pick up from their parents and use it with them. It's just
And the other thing that I think would come back to the opinions is that, you see, in having this show and expressing my opinion, a lot of people will say, oh, well, all he wants to do is he's seeking attention. But I don't need to seek attention.
yes, sir.
Because I got a lot of attention in this country, whether or not I wanted it or not, over the years. And some of it wasn't even nice attention.
Yes, sir.
So it's not attention that I'm seeking. But I'm trying to show people that because you talk with people don't mean that you necessarily have to fight with people. That you're not fighting simply because you're conversing.
Yes, sir.
And we need to educate our people to learn to accept discourse as something that is positive and constructive rather than as dividing and divisive and destructive. And so I do these programs. So what the other thing is that people say, well, I don't want my child to come on that program because we don't necessarily agree with him. So if we don't agree with him, we don't want our child to be on the program with him. You see, that's just the kind of society that we have. So it's good that we are coming to a point where we can discuss things as sensitive as the immigration issue. And we have discussed it in such a way that we have covered a lot of other issues. We've covered youth issues, the health of our youth, the intelligence of our youth, the dreams and aspirations of our youth, how our youth are addressing the question of immigration and differences within their own society. All these things we have been able to do tonight very positively. And I must say that we have done it together much better than I might have been able to do it with an adult, with adult guests here, simply because the tolerance of you here have been exceptional, and you've been so polite and so much of a gentleman. You've expressed your opinion, and we have Kimberly there, who was, like I said, born here, not a Caymanian by status. We have Rhonda, and you have never given them the opinion somehow that you're disrespecting them and what they might feel that they might want.
Yes, sir.
And they have never given me or given you the opinion that somehow they're demanding something as well. And I think that's been very good. So anyway, Ori, we've just got 2 or 3 minutes left, so if it's anything, you got a few seconds you can just say.
Yeah, we actually did go over everything.
Topics,
Yes, overall.
And I must thank your father and your mother, Joy. I know your parents very well,
Yes,
for
sir.
allowing you to come on the program and for raising such a patient and articulate son.
sir.
I think that you're very sensitive, and I think that you're very deep in terms of the way you think, and I believe that you will make a great Caymanian leader, and maybe one day, you know, you will be such. Kimberly, I would like to say to you, thanks for coming on the program, and to say thank your mother as well. I think you're got some very good ideas. And Wanda, thank you very much. I didn't use you as much as I might have wanted to use you, but it was simply because I did not want us to just be on that particular level of the immigration issue, because at the moment we're going through a lot of turbulence with regards to our youth culture, and I think it's important that we understand basically what the young people are experiencing. So thank you all very much for being on Public Eye. And I must now say good night from Public Eye. And this is, of course, a very, very nice night for me. I've enjoyed the discussion very much, and I thank you for watching Public Eye. And please, if you would like to be on the Public Eye program, you can write me. You can address it to Box 30712, 7 Mile Beach. I'm interested in constructive dialogue and positive thoughts and ideas. Thank you again, and good night from Public Eye.
Public Eye has been brought to you by the New Vision Movement.